Hello. Hope you're all having a good evening. Well, I decided we're gonna want to do a video, and this video is going to cover uh, about Martin Luther King.
Today I would like to talk mainly about the race problem, since I'll have to rush right out and go to New York to talk about Vietnam tomorrow, and I've been talking about it a great deal this week and weeks before that. But I'd like to use as a subject from which to speak this afternoon the other America. And I use this subject because there are literally two Americas.
In 1967, as the civil rights movement entered a new and turbulent chapter, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered a speech that cut deeper than most Americans were ready to hear. The other America was not just about dreams, because it was about reality. It is a reality of two nations, one bathed in opportunity, the other shackled by poverty, racism, and neglect. This wasn't the doctor, king of sanitized textbooks or sound bites. This man confronted the uncomfortable truth of economic injustice and systemic inequality. In this video, we revisit the other America, not just to hear his words, but to understand their enduring power and why they still echo so loudly today.
One America is beautiful for a situation. In a sense, this America is overflowing with the milk of prosperity and the honey of opportunity. This America is the habitat of millions of people who have food and material necessities for their bodies, culture and education for their minds, freedom and human dignity for their spirits. In this America, millions of people experience every day the opportunity of having life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in all of their dimensions. And in this America, millions of young people grow up in the sunlight of opportunity. But tragically and unfortunately, there is another America. This other America has a daily ugliness about it that constantly transforms the buoyancy of hope into the fatigue of despair. In this America, millions of work-starved men walk the streets daily in search for jobs that do not exist. In this America, millions of people find themselves living in rat-infested, vermin-filled slums. In this America, people are poor by the millions. And they find themselves perishing on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. In a sense, the greatest tragedy of this other America is what it does to little children. Little children in this other America are forced to grow up with clouds of inferiority forming every day in their little mental sky. As we look at this other America, we see it as an arena of blasted hopes and shattered dreams. Many people of various backgrounds live in this other America. Some are Mexican Americans, some are Puerto Ricans, some are Indians, some happen to be from other groups. Millions of them are Appalachian whites. probably the largest group in this other America in proportion to its size and the population, is the American Negro. The American Negro finds himself living in a triple ghetto: a ghetto of race, a ghetto of poverty, a ghetto is to deal with this problem of the two Americas. We are seeking to make America one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now let me say that the struggle for civil rights and the struggle to make these two Americas one America is much more difficult today than it was 5 or 10 years ago. For about a decade or maybe 12 years, we struggled all across the South in glorious struggles to get rid of legal, overt segregation and all of the humiliation that surrounded that system of segregation. In a sense, this was a struggle for decency. We could not go to a lunch counter in so many instances and get a hamburger or a cup of coffee. We could not make use of public accommodations. Public transportation was segregated. Often we had to sit in the back, and then transportation within cities, we often had to stand over empty seats because sections were reserved for whites only. We do not have the right to vote in so many areas of the South. The struggle was to deal with these problems. Now certainly they were difficult problems, they were humiliating conditions. By the thousands we protested these conditions. We made it clear that it was ultimately more honorable to accept jail cell experiences than to accept segregation and humiliation. By the thousands, students and adults decided to sit in at segregated lunch counters to protest conditions there. When they were sitting at those lunch counters, they were in reality standing up for the best in the American dream, seeking to take the whole nation back to those great wells of democracy, which were dug deep by the founding fathers in the formulation of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Many things were gained as a result of these years of struggle.
Dr. King masterfully contrasts two Americas, not as abstract ideas, but as lived realities. One is a land of abundance, opportunity, and dignity. The other is a land of suffering, neglect, and silent despair. As King describes it, the first America enjoys the milk of prosperity and the honey of opportunity. This poetic language evokes not just material comfort, but a kind of moral promise fulfilled, a society where people are not just surviving, but thriving. In this America, young people are raised in the sunlight of opportunity, suggesting warmth and growth, a generational trajectory of hope. But then, his tone shifts. Tragically and unfortunately, there is another America. And here, Doctor, King begins to strip away the illusion of national unity. He describes a country where economic apartheid and racial isolation are not anomalies. They are defining features, where men are work-starved and forced to wander streets searching for jobs that simply don't exist, where children grow up with clouds of inferiority forming every day in their little mental skies. This line, in particular, captures the psychological violence of poverty and racism, a trauma that begins in childhood and calcifies over time. And King is careful to emphasize that this second America is not just a black America. Yes, the American Negro, he says, lives in a triple ghetto of race, of poverty, and of geography. But he includes Puerto Ricans, Mexican Americans, Native peoples, and white Appalachians in his portrait. It's a broad coalition of the excluded, united not by race, but by deprivation. This framing was radical for its time, and it still challenges us today. King wasn't simply advocating for civil rights in the legal sense. He was exposing structural inequality baked deep into American capitalism and policy. His vision of unifying these two Americas was not just about ending segregation, but also about economic transformation, systemic repair, and a new moral contract. What he's saying here is that the dream of America, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is not dead, but it is selectively distributed. And unless that changes, the nation cannot call itself truly free or united.
In the Negro community, that is a major, tragic, and staggering depression that we face in our everyday lives. Now, the other thing that we've got to come to see now that many of us didn't see too well during the last 10 years, that is that racism is still alive in American society and much more widespread than we realize. We must see racism for what it is. It is a myth of the superior and the inferior race. It is the false and tragic notion that one particular group, one particular race is responsible for all of the progress, all of the insight, to the total flow of history. And the theory that another group or another race is totally depraved, innately impure, and innately inferior. In the final analysis, racism is evil because its ultimate logic is genocide. Hitler was a sick, tragic man who carried racism to its logical conclusion. He ended up leading a nation to the point of killing about 6 million Jews. This is the tragedy of racism because its ultimate logic is genocide. One says that I am not good enough to live next door to him. One says that I am not good enough to eat at a lunch counter, or to have a good, decent job, or to go to school with him, merely because of my race. He is saying consciously or unconsciously that I do not deserve to exist. To use the philosophical analogy here, racism is not based on some empirical generalization. It is based rather on an ontological affirmation. It is not the assertion that certain people are behind culturally or otherwise because of environmental conditions. It is the affirmation that the very being of a people is inferior. This is the great tragedy of it. I see that however unpleasant it is, we must honestly see and admit that racism is still deeply rooted all over America, still deeply rooted in the North, still deeply rooted in the South. Now, this leads me to say something about another discussion that we hear a great deal. That is the so-called white backlash. I would like to honestly say to you that the white backlash is merely a new name for an old phenomenon. Not something that just came into being because shouts of black power, or because Negroes engaged in...
Why is filing your taxes with Free Tax USA different? Well, for starters, our premium federal tax...
I'm going to stop it right there. Shout out to his channel, Black Journals.
2024, guess what? In Louisiana, the state Supreme Court there is allowing a largely white community to break apart and separate the city of Baton Rouge to create their own city. This has been been a 6-year effort by folks there. On Friday, the Supreme Court granted the formation of the predominantly white city of St. George, which will be separate from Baton Rouge. The ruling is sparking concerns about segregation. Activist Gary Chambers posted a video talking about this here. He joins us now from Baton Rouge. Gary, glad to have you here. You made clear, Gary, that this was a very organized effort by a handful of people with a lot of money to achieve the creation of their own city. Walk folks through how this happened.
So, Roland, we have a man named Norman Browning organizes a group of about 10 people that decide they want a new school district because they don't want their kids to go to the schools of Baton Rouge. Keep in mind, Baton Rouge is the city that had the longest desegregation lawsuit in America. We didn't finish that lawsuit until the 90s. And so when you look at the conversation around people wanting a new school district, these are people who ultimately don't want their kids to go to school with black kids. Currently, the school district in Baton Rouge is 80% black, even though the city is 56% black. So white parents in Baton Rouge right now, for the most part, do not send their kids to public schools in Baton Rouge. As a result of not getting that school district, these folks then decided to try to start a city. They failed the first time because the city was, I think at that time, going to be 60% white. They went back, cut out black neighborhoods, cut out black apartment complexes, made the municipality smaller, put it back on the ballot, and got it passed by a vote of 17,000 people. The vote of 17,000 now impacts 400,000 people who live in East Baton Rouge Parish because of the general fund that's $1 billion of city parish money. 300 million of that is not dedicated, and they're going to take away $48 million of resources from the general fund in order to create this new municipality. So I don't really care if they go off and segregate themselves, but I do care that we paid into the fortunes of that portion of town for the last 50 years, and to say that you're going to start a new community and then we owe you money for that community, well, we've been paying a whole lot for a long time, and we want our portion to be paid for if you're going to get it.
So,
welcome back to Breakdown Friday. Joseph Ward, Patrick Irvin, Professor Carl Tone Jones. As you can see, we're here breaking down the situation going on in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The suburb of St. George decided that they didn't want to live by the colored folk no more. So they're going to pick up not just their borough, but the whole town and move and succeed from Baton Rouge and create their own incorporation and operate as St. George. And of course, you can see it's upsetting a lot of people because resources, there's a lot of the main talking points I've been hearing is resources are going to be further taken from Baton Rouge and given to the people in St. George, who is the wealthier part of Louisiana. I mean, the wealthy part of Baton Rouge, because what I learned is St. George is like that wealthy suburb of Baton Rouge. So, as the gentleman said, it started when they wanted to create their own school district to separate because Baton Rouge, I believe, has the poorest school district in Louisiana, or the worst school district in Louisiana. So they wanted to separate from that. That didn't work, as the gentleman said. So they said, we're going to create our own city. And here we are. Pat, man, you had that look on your face, man. You had that look on your face when Roland started talking and when they started getting into it, man. What the hell popped in your mind? How you get that look on your face?
It was just like here we go again, another example of Negroes chasing behind white folk. And that's what the look was. Like, and I understand, you know, when you start talking about resources and things like that, I get it. It can be dicey. And that's why, you know, the look was, the first thought was white flight, Negroes cry.
I saw a video earlier on this subject, and that was the title, like white flight. And, you know, white people have been working to move away from us when things aren't going good, and then waiting on it to get worse, and then come back and buying it and moving back in and kicking everybody else out. It's a cycle. But every time white people move away, black people want to move with them. And once again, like you said, the resources is the issue, though, because further resources will be taken out of Baton Rouge because those people, those wealthy people, do command a lot of resources. But like you said, they have all of the populations of people have put resources into Baton Rouge, but these people command the most other resources because they're the wealthiest.
Well, I think for me, it becomes what I would want to see. I need to see the resource split. I understand this is a predominantly whatever, but that's for me to really have an opinion on the resource piece of it.
Right.
Because I don't want to talk out of turn.
Right,
What
right.
I will say is, instead of leading with that, what we got was 5 minutes of, oh my God, it's so racist. And that's the part that's aggravating. If the problem is resources, why do we, like the rest of the whole first 2-3 minutes of what he said doesn't matter. I don't care that about segregation, and I don't care about that. I don't care about none of that. If the problem is the dollars and cents, then let's talk about the dollars and cents. Because what you end up doing is issues begin to be conflated and mixed up and misconstrued, and then now you got a bunch of people all mad about this particular problem, but mad for different reasons. And then when we start looking at answers for these problems, well, now the answers that we're trying to create solve or match up with certain reasons. And when those reasons aren't aligned, you get a whole bunch of other discord and a whole bunch of other disorganization and disunity. And now you got people attacking other people. What is your issue? Is your issue the fact that the resources are going to be taken from the community? Or is your issue the fact that white folk are moving away from black folk? Because you started out talking about how white folk are moving away from black folk, and then you said, but that's okay. If they want to move away from us, that's fine. Well, you just spent 3 minutes saying that that's not okay.
Well, I believe it's a combination of both. And I believe that because just the history of our relationship with white people. But I think it's a large part of, oh no, white people leaving. But then, you say, oh, white people leaving. Well, forget them, let them leave. We don't need them anyway. Then why after you say we don't need them, you remember like, oh shoot, we dependent on them.
Well, yes, and I understand that, and I'm glad you put it that way because I was trying to think of a way to put it. So great.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna let PC cook up, but I want to say this: white people have the majority of the wealth in most major cities all over the country.
Yeah.
And white people are not, that wealth is not going to be redistributed. At this juncture, black people, like in my opinion, this is the best thing that could happen to black people in a black city, to have all of the white people up and lead. At that point, I'm understanding that it's going to be difficult. But at that point, your community, y'all are in a position where y'all got to figure it out. Figure it out.
See, you got hope. Well, I know you don't, but that sounds hopeful. But it goes back to what we've said numerous times on this channel. Doing this particular breakdowns is, well, now that goes, like you said, goes back to us, black people having to do work, black people having to take care of self, black people having to be the ones who provide the resources. Because it's not like Black America don't have it. Shout out to all the men and women from Kamala and y'all billions of dollars. Shout out to y'all. So it's not like Black America don't have it. Black America, we don't use our wealth properly, and we are dependent upon white people for their resources because we're always looking at the wealth gap, and the wealth gap is supposed to be there, right? But that's not our job to try to catch up with them. It's our job to create what we need to create for ourselves to be self-sufficient. But that's work. Yeah. So PC, man, what are your thoughts, man? St. George, the white folks saying peace on the black people in Baton Rouge, and black people saying, well, hey, y'all can leave. Hold on. Don't leave. What's your thoughts?
I mean, Pat done cooked, fricassee, gumbo out here. You know what I'm saying?
Big nets.
You know what I'm saying?
Pat done roasted the whole gator down there. You know what I'm saying? Louisiana swamp. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, when I first saw this, it was the same thing. Like white flight. Like the whole book. If you read the book, Sundown Towns, it started off as white flight. You know, and white folk building towns that wanted to be principally all white, and black folk trying to follow them out there. Now I understand the resources part, but at some point black people have to get to the point of creating resources within themselves. I bet you, and this is, you know, just say what it is. There's not going to be a dry bar in Baton Rouge, in the black neighborhood. There's not going to be a club where bottles ain't being tossed and people are talking about this is living. And that might seem like small fries, small potatoes, but every dollar count when it comes to creating the environment that you need to be in. These white folks said they wanted to move their children out of that school district because they didn't feel like it was beneficial for their children. Right. I'm not mad at it. I mean, you had, I think it was in New Orleans, where the fathers decided to come to the schools. Or was it I know it was some part in Louisiana where the fathers decided to show up, change the whole dynamic of the school. That was just one school. Imagine if, and that was just their sweat equity. Imagine if you got the entirety of Baton Rouge, who, I mean, it wasn't Jay-Z, who was just down there with a big bash not too long ago? 50 Cent was down there with a big bash. So we can come together for concerts and parties and things of that nature, but we can't come together to build our communities. Right. You know? Right. So, because this is a game of austerity. And this goes back, I'm glad you mentioned the election, I'm glad y'all mentioned the election bread. This goes back to the fact that black people don't practice politics except for maybe 2 to 3 months outside of a major national election. Because they allowed, since they want to talk about being tricked and played out of their position, they allowed for the gerrymandering of the municipality to take place. And they should have been informed because it failed a few years previously. But instead of focusing on the local politics like we always talk about, they went nose deaf or nose blind to what was going on, to the point where in a town, in a city with over 200,000 people, they allowed the threshold to amend the creation of St. George's County to succeed, the succession, to be the threshold of 15,000 votes. Why is the threshold so small? They already knew they had those votes. They had petitions prior to. Right. So black folk ain't taking care of business and then want to cry afterwards and call foul with people who are playing chess while we're playing hopscotch. Like it's always said before, like this is war, economic warfare, environmental warfare, academic warfare. All these things are happening right now in that small municipality, in that small town in Louisiana. But this is just a picture of what's happening. Why aren't the people in those school districts, working to make their community safer? Working to make their communities better? Working, I mean, right now, I bet you there's a lot of houses with no laptops but PS5s sitting in the living room somewhere. With $2,000 cell phones in those places. This is what we mean when we start talking about how you have to take care of your own business. Because nobody's going to do it for you. Straight up. Everybody else practices nationalism but us.
and you want to follow those who do. So now, when white people decide they want to live on the moon and Mars, black people are going to be complaining that we can't go follow them there too.
Hey, look, according to this article, they're quoting Rick Rojas of the New York Times, and plans have been in place for 10 years, and they're going back to them trying to succeed as far as the school district. So black people in that area should have been getting their stuff together, because it's similar to here in Tallahassee. Like over 10 years ago, they told people here in Tallahassee that, hey, we're gonna get rid of this housing project, and everybody was like, oh no, they're gonna get rid of the housing project, what are we gonna do? And then everybody went back to partying, and then when it came time for it to happen, they're like, oh no, it's happening. They told you. Same thing with this. They have been literally working to separate, and the separation has happened. But
Hold up, listen. That happens in damn near every metropolitan area. Philly, in Philly, there's a section called the Greater Northeast Philly, right? It's the northeast part of the Philly, part of the city. They have been trying to succeed from the heart of the city since I was born. Now, you know what I'm saying? Now you go in that area, it's probably the most segregated part of the city in terms of black and white in those areas. So, but let me make this make sense to you, right? I know it makes sense to you, but I'm gonna make it make sense to you. I'm talking to you all watching in the comments. I'm talking to y'all. So, y'all don't think we do this live. Anyway, so back in 1996, ironically, I was talking to my brother George from out of Compton earlier today. Compton, you had a record producer, the owner of a record company by the name of Suge Knight, Marion Suge Knight. In 1996, that company was worth $600 million. Now, fast forward to the day, that's over $1 billion, right? In the town, a black town of 100,000 people, right? That's a pretty big town, pretty big city. Well, it's a pretty big town, small city. Now, you're in that town, you have control of who's the mayor, your family is in politics, right? Suge Knight's family was in the city council, right? And then all black members of the city council were all black people. Do you want to know what the largest financer, like the largest provider of jobs in that town was in Compton? The freaking school district. At any time, the bank was decommissioned and removed from the city. The police department was decommissioned, and then the state ran, the state started running the police department, started policing the area because so much corruption. The bottom line is, every time you've seen a situation like this, and I bring up Suge Knight for a reason.
Now Taxes is a TurboTax expert, doing everything while you do your thing.
If you're a Christian, middle-class American between the ages of 30 and 70, and you're looking to earn some extra income this year, listen up. Check this out. There's a new side hustle that can be done with something you already have in your home right now, and with just a few hours of work per week at your kitchen.
Have you noticed that there's one group that has not made any noise or made videos complaining about Trump's policies hurting them or their business? Black farmers.
Right now, a lot of white farmers are scared. They're struggling with new rules, losing money, and blaming the government. Some of them are even crying out for help, but you don't hear much from black farmers. Why? Because we already know the game. For years, black farmers have been left out on purpose. The system was built to push us out. Our land was stolen. We were denied loans. We were shut out of programs that white farmers used to grow rich. So now, when Trump's policies or government changes hurt white farmers, we don't feel the shock the same way. Why? Because we were never included in the first place.
Have you noticed that there's one group that has not made any noise or made videos complaining about Trump's policies hurting them or their business? Black farmers. How many videos have you seen of black farmers, excuse me, making videos going, oh, I'm going to lose my farm because Trump cut off benefits. I'm going to lose my farm because Department of Agriculture no longer gives me subsidy. How many videos have you seen of black farmers doing that? That's because black farmers have historically, till this day, been excluded from all government subsidies. So right now, every white farmer is learning how to survive the same way black farmers have been surviving. Like I said, what Trump was going to do was break every white American down to the black American level.
He's right. While they panic, we stay steady. Because we've been dealing with unfair laws, broken promises, and stolen dreams since forever. Now here's something you don't hear every day. This woman is keeping it real. She's calling out the truth. White farmers are begging for help now. But where was that same energy when black farmers were crying out, losing land and being ignored?
You know, I'm seeing all these videos right now where all these farmers are crying about not getting no help right now. You know what? Let me ask you something. When have you ever heard of a black farmer crying about it? Never. And you want to know why? Because they ain't never got no help in the first place. That's right. USDA is literally admitted to discriminating against black farmers. And literally, black farmers have to sue thousands of them to get what white farmers are handed for free. And fast forward to today, all these farmers crying that they can't get no help. You see, black farmers, they've been struggling. Y'all just now feeling what they've been feeling for over 100 years. Black farmers, they used to own over 19 million acres of land. But guess what? Systematic racism, denied loans, shady politicians, and legal loopholes wiped them all out. You know. And now they're 1% of America's farmland. When the government finally tried to pass relief for the black folk back in 2021, white farmers sued to block it, claimed it was reverse discrimination. Make that make sense. So, you know, next time you see folks complaining about farm aid, why don't you ask them, where's the help from black farmers? Ask them why their struggle is just now important when others have been suffering for centuries.
Let's go even deeper. This brother is about to break it all the way down. From stolen land to blocked resources, he lays out how the system has always been set up against black farmers.
The U.S. government gave 270 million acres of land away for free. Guess who didn't get any? That's right. After the Civil War, 3,500 black families managed to claim about 650,000 acres through the Homestead Act. Now that may sound like a lot, right? Well, that's when you realize that white settlers got 270 million acres. Okay? Now the way I figure that, that's about a 400 to 1 difference. To paraphrase Martin Luther King, it wasn't just the land. The government built land-grant colleges to teach white farmers how to work the land. Then they sent out experts to help them succeed, and then they gave them low-interest loans and subsidies to keep white farmers growing. Black farmers, they were just left to figure it out on their own. Here's the wild part. You see, after the Civil War and the Homestead Act, black folks made it happen without government subsidies, and by 1910, black folks owned 16 million acres of land, about 14% of all of the farmland in the U.S. And here's the amazing thing, right? By 1910, that 16 million acres, that was the top part. That was the apotheosis of black farming. Think about the color purple, where all those black folks own land. They own that 16 million. Now that's where this chart comes in. Now you see this blue line? That's what white farmers got for free. Okay? Now, the Homestead Act is the second line. This is what black folks got. Okay? That's the handouts that black folks got compared to those handouts. Alright, now, because black folks make a way out of no way, this green line, that's what black farmers had in 1910. Now here's the part that always makes me mad. 16 million acres of land, 14% of all the land that was farmland in America, that was 1910. Think the color purple and how Mr. and all these folks had land, all right? You know what the last line is? That's what black farmers own today. About 4 million acres of land. Literally, there have been reports that over 90% of black farmers get rejected for subsidies and loans. So that means that a black farmer essentially can't make money picking cotton. Make it make sense. There's always one factoid that makes me think, man, you know, black folks, we are awesome. The one of the few people who made any money or any earnings off of the Homestead Act, black folks, was a man named Oscar Micheaux. So for those of you who know anything about film, Oscar Micheaux essentially invented black film. And he used his earnings to support a thriving black film industry for about 30 years in Hollywood. So don't tell me that land ain't important and black folks owning land aren't important. Think of all the Oscar Micheauxs we could have had. I'm your Uncle Sonari. Give your brother a follow.
Now, if you still don't believe the system was designed to shut us out, listen to this. This former chicken farmer lays it all out. How they refused to let him pass his farm down to his own family, not because of money, not because of business, but because he's black. They would rather hand it to a stranger than let black land stay in black hands.
If people knew what kind of mess was going on just to get a piece of chicken, they would stop eating.
My wife got me this crazy new tool as a Christmas gift. God, I love her. It looks like a block with these weird pins in it. I plug it into my car and bam, the health of my entire car shows up on my phone.
Damn commercials.
Whatever you do, run from a poultry house. Do not do it. You'll lose your wife. You'll lose your health. You'll lose everything that you have. It's not worth it. Run from a chicken house. Run. I'm Carlton Sanders, and I'm from Forest, Mississippi, and I was a chicken grower for some 28 years for Cook Foods, and I lost everything I had due to the upgrades and a bunch of guys that didn't like black folks. That's the bottom line. I mean, if people knew how much trouble we were having trying to grow these chickens, they would stop eating chicken. I mean, it's just that simple. Because nobody wants to be like I am now. Done lost everything and pitiful looking and talking. And people don't want to do that. But now Tyson and Cook, ooh, it's just like you in hell with those guys. Yeah, I used to cry and couldn't stand to come back here because I did everything from scratch. And I'd been here for 30-some years. Had a beautiful garden. You know, everything was just good and perfect. So, you know, therefore, you know, it just made a mess out of things. That have to get out and move somewhere else and relocate. You know how it is. It was just hard all over. This was my #1 house right here on the Carlton Sanders farm. And I did this for 28 years right here at this farm right here. One year, and I would have had everything paid for, from $750,000 down to $50,000. they found out somehow that I'm about to get everything paid for, and they wanted me to do all upgrades, so they would put me back in debt some $500,000, and the bank wouldn't do it. First, the bank was on my side, so we are sick of these chicken farms and the way they operate. And then all of a sudden, when they got ready to cut me off and kill me, then the bank pulled in with them. My son got the money to buy the place, and once he got the money, they wouldn't let him have it. The man told me, said, well, he told my son first, he said, they trying to put your dad out of there. They sold for $110,000. That's what this guy got it for.
How much did you have to pay?
I offered him $150. It was a racial thing, a black versus white, and if I'd have been a white guy, I never would have went through this. And they didn't have no mercy on me, and I don't wish this on nobody. And a farmer shouldn't have to go through this, you know, when he's feeding them herb. He shouldn't have to go through this. Nobody should have to go through what I've gone through. So, like I said, I thank God I'm still living and things as well as it is. And, you know, that's just how it is. I'm thankful and blessed. Chicken is the way of life in Mississippi. Now, then where you going to find your black guys that on the truck and catching the chicken? It's just pretty dangerous because right now, with this corona thing out, these people get sick and die or get sick. They just roll another black guy in his place and tell him to keep on getting up. It's terrible. If people knew what kind of mess was going on just to get a piece of chicken, they would stop eating. Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, Senator Doug Jones, they wanted to help. So we're trying to get a bill passed as to how we can handle this problem and help other growers not to grow through what I've gone through. You know, I look at it like Martin Luther King and Lewis. Those guys can do it, I can too. I want to be heard, and I want to be heard from. You know, we were supposed to meet Donald Trump, but he chickened out. He wouldn't do it. He said he didn't think the farmer was having that much trouble. He said because he didn't hear nothing about it. Yeah, just because he don't hear nothing about it, that don't mean it ain't happening. You know, it's just tough. And then so many people laughed at me, and then so many people cried, you know. But I did the best I could, what I had to do, and you know, tried to make it.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop it right here.
And that right there says it all. They'll do everything.
Shout out to her channel. Yeah,
They can to keep black folks from owning, building, and passing down what's ours. Not because we can't do it, but because they know we can. From land theft, to denied loans, to flat out
and this goes all the way back into the past.
My wife thought this outdoor mystery box I saw online was a
You know, when you hear some people say, why can't you let the past go? So, we ain't supposed to, you're supposed to erase this out of history. This was in history too. They did this, recorded to black farmers when they first got off the plantation. They used to go and just take eminent domain. And if the black farmers didn't give them across the country, you know, there was no justice. They would simply get their farms burned down, get harassed, run out, deleted for family members. But I guess that's supposed to be patriotism, right? Supposed to be proud to be an American. You come back from a war, you come back to the land, being a black man, you do everything right, obey the law, pay your taxes, you get crapped on. And you have envious and jealousy people that can use their skin color in some cases to manipulate, to tell the government this is what's going on. So guess what? Just like the woman said, you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. your jealousy, your envious, and they collab with people because they don't want to compete. Just simple. Imagine being jealous at African American, Black Americans for doing the righteous thing that other people would do around the world. Imagine doing something like that. The man, dedicated himself. But see, they didn't want you to have something. But you know what? That's alright. Because what comes around goes around. And all these people that stolen property from black people, manipulated through the government, local government, state government, and their cities and states, they're gonna pay. God's not gonna let this rest. I was thinking about a passage in the Bible, and you probably know about Mordecai and Jezebel and her husband, and I think wanted the land, and her husband was a wimp, so it was an Ahab, I believe, and I think that was the story. So the guy went over and asked Mordecai, "Why don't you sell me this land?" And it was a birthright to Mordecai. He said, "No." He said, "No. This is my treasure in my room." So Jezebel, I believe it was Jezebel, got mad and sent the henchmen to take out Mordecai. I believe this is in the Bible. And so her husband acquired it. It's the same biblical story. It all connects. That someone is jealousy of what you have, and don't feel like you should have something that you are prospering. And so they want to come and take it. And all because of different ethnic background. But yet, they want the destitute. The same people that's doing this to African Americans, particularly, were one of the groups of people they do this to. They think they're going to be blessed by doing this. And they don't know that what they do is going to come back to be a curse on them. Because now, Trump is, beating on his chest to China and these other people that these farmers have done, and said, we're going to raise your tariffs. It's going to put them out of business. And it's going to probably hurt their supply. And they're going to be just like that black man. Some of them going to be just like that because of what they've done, the injustice that they've done. See, there's an old saying goes, God don't like ugly. And when you do something ugly, it's going to come back and affect you. But you see how the video about Martin Luther King, that's what it was talk about. Look, that was 1967, 57 years ago. Have things have changed since then? No, you got hearing the same thing over and over and over. Nothing's new that's up under the sun. But people don't want you to talk about it. And then you have a president that recently is trying to erase it. You can't erase something that what you contending is in your bloodline. What is the habit that goes back to the early 1700s? Segregation. And it was based on fear. Remember, fear, jealousy, envious, strife, and they bring on violence. So this is all what they can to bring to people that do no harm. And they put it on the black people that it's your fault that you did it. Let's reverse the psychology on it. It's your fault your fault. That's something. That's the minor witchcraft that I've ever seen. Because they wanted to compete. They don't want other people. That's something really deep rooted. That I know is that in all these cases, it's something really deep rooted when you don't want to see another group of people just do the same thing, and they move it in their own way. And that's why I said, for some black people, it may take leaving another country to get away from these psychotic people who have this, and hopefully get the same respect and admiration to start your own thing in a different part of the world. Hopefully, you will take your gifts and talent where it's appreciated. Because it seems like America don't appreciate it. If they don't appreciate you, you do something that envious and jealous of you. They have to gloss over it and put the image of what the male, the female has to look like them, not like you. That's something, ain't it? We had to try to rid it out of history. And when we raised Cain about it, you reverse racism. That's the psychotic game. And the people that do stuff like that, you know, God see what you're doing. But, you know, I pray that one day this brother, his family, will God, everything that we have been through as a people, stolen land, that the Most High God make these people pay. And it's not nothing that a president, a legislation, nothing can do. Just like in the times of the Bible with the Egyptians and the Hebrews, it's going to happen in our time. Just stay standing with the Lord Jesus Christ, and He will repay. And these people with this arrogance, this ego, this supremacist attitude, they're going to lose. They're not going to have nothing. Everything that they stolen, strife, and they have a historical, it's going to come back. And they're going to be the servant in the end. The ones who caused this. If they don't, God's going to put them in a place that they wish they have. And they're going to regret for the rest of eternity. Mark my word when I tell you this. So, you know, so my question to America, has it changed? You see the results. Think about it. Take care, be blessed. See you on the next video.